Good evening. I am Assemblywoman Petrie-Norris, and thank you so much for joining us for tonight's Facebook Live Town Hall. We'll be focused on talking about mental health in the time of COVID-19. I'm pleased to be joined this evening by my co-host, Congressman Harley Ruda. Thank you so much for being here. And we're also joined this evening by Dr. Carrie Engleton, who is the president of the Orange County Psychological Association, and by Dr. Carol Agar, who is the past president of the Orange County Psychological Association. Thank you both for being here. As I said to you before we turned the cameras on, we have been getting so many questions, and people are really looking forward to, I think, this opportunity to have some perspective, be connected with practical resources, and understand what we can do to navigate this turbulent time. I think to say that we are living through stressful times is the understatement of the century. People are grappling with stressors that are both immediate and practical. I just lost my job. I don't know how to homeschool my kids. I'm watching my retirement, my savings evaporate, and stressors that are existential as we navigate this unprecedented global public health crisis. There are so many unknowns, and it's not surprising that we're seeing an unprecedented demand for mental health resources, and sadly we are seeing suicide rates spike alongside this pandemic. So I want to thank our experts for joining us this evening, and I want to thank my co-host, Congressman Harley Ruda, for your leadership and your continued partnership. I'd love to hand it over to you for your opening remarks before we get to the questions.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Petrie-Norris, and thank you for your leadership, not just on this topic, but so many other issues that are important to your constituents here. You've done a fabulous job of making sure that they have access to the information, the facts, and the resources they need to do the best they can to manage through this pandemic. We've had numerous of these town halls, often together. In fact, just last week, I did a couple town halls, one on the concerns regarding domestic violence and child abuse as we are in these stressful times, as well as food security, as we have seen the pictures on TV, the number of people who are having to reach out to food banks just to be able to feed their families. All of this is adding to the incredible stress that working families around the country, our senior citizens, they're dealing with issues that none of us really ever comprehended that we would have to face. And let me share some statistics with you just here in Orange County. 1 in 5 people in Orange County have reported needing help with behavioral health issues. About 10% of adults in Orange County report likely seriously psychological distress, and we've been seeing that increase over the years. This is before COVID-19, and unfortunately, the crisis is causing mental health concerns to grow even more. In April, about 20,000 people texted a federal emergency hotline for people in emotional distress. To put that in perspective, that's a 1,000% increase versus last year. We know as we continue to navigate these waters that mental health is going to become an even bigger issue. For obviously, we have the reasons associated with stay-at-home orders, having our lives disrupted, people losing their job, concerns about losing their businesses. You also have on top of that, people who are dying. They're dying without their loved ones at their side. And those loved ones have to march on without having an opportunity to say a proper goodbye, let alone having their world turned upside down by having a loved one die unexpectedly. So we know that the mental health issues facing us now and in the months and years to come have been deeply exacerbated by the pandemic. And I'm thrilled to be on with CADI to be able to host these doctors and their expertise with you so you can understand the challenges that all of us and our loved ones are facing. Thank you.
And Dr. Agar, would you go ahead and introduce yourself to the folks at home and share your opening remarks?
My name is Dr. Agar. I have a practice in Irvine. My specialty is in clinical neuropsychology. So I do a lot of testing with children as well as older adults. And I also do therapy as well. But I see a lot of tension during this time, especially because if patients have been waiting to get testing done and during this time they can't because they can't come into the office, those have been challenges. But we have been working in terms of following the guidelines to make sure that we're following all the safety protocols and also to make sure that we're providing services to the community.
Thank you. And Dr. Engel.
Hi, thanks for having me. I practice independently in Newport Beach, so I'm local here. One of my expertise areas is trauma, and I also work with Gottman Method's couples therapy, which is really handy right now. A lot of people are having trouble working with their spouses at the moment. I've noticed there have been a lot of changes in mental health field, just regarding using telehealth as the big format. Right now, everyone's doing video therapy, and it's been a challenge for some clients to really adjust. And I'm hoping that after all this is over with, we're going to all feel a little bit more comfortable with all kinds of different communication forms and technology, even if we weren't really wanting to do that before. Maybe now we will. So I think it could be good.
Right. It definitely is. I think we all use this phrase now. It is certainly a new normal. And I think we're all having to try to find ways to connect through technology. And I think we're all lucky that we're living in a moment where that is possible, but it is not without its challenges, and it's been a tough transition for so many of us. So Dr. Engleton, I want to come back to you with our first question. So as we know, COVID-19 has challenged our resources, our expectations in so many ways. Kind of taking the big picture, what are the key issues that you see arising right now with mental health?
I'm seeing a lot of people are experiencing a lot of anxiety and stress. They're also feeling lonely and kind of forced to stay in their small, their homes or their small environments without being able to go to some of their normal places where they cope. A lot of people are feeling sad as well, either because they're isolated or because their employment situation has changed, different things like that. There are a lot of people who are dealing with marital problems and also behavioral problems with their children, just because everyone's feeling very stressed. Their schedules are different, and children are going to act out a little, and people are going to get maybe a little irritated just from being confined. I am also seeing a lot of the other side. I'm seeing people being amazingly flexible. I'm seeing a lot of people reaching out for support, helping each other, and also the community coming together, and it makes me very hopeful that as a community, as horrible as this is, it might remind us who we are and what we are capable of. So hopefully, one of my messages here is I'd like to make sure everyone realizes that it's normal to feel this stressed right now. It's normal, and it's okay to rely on other people. So just know you're not alone, and there are a lot of people out there who would like to be there for you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. We'll move on to question number 2. Dr. Agar, this is for you. We talked about this at the very beginning about how stressful this time frame is, and we can obviously see that continuing for months and years as we navigate these troubling waters. What ideas would you suggest for individuals to manage that stress, process that stress as they deal with it in their individual ways as well as among their families?
You're right. These are very challenging and unprecedented times. And, it's a very difficult time and situation. And even if individuals had ways to kind of cope with their stress and anxiety before, now they might have to do those things in a different way. If people manage their stress by going outside, going to the beach, or going to the restaurant, going to the movies. Well, we can't do that now. So people have had to be creative in terms of how to kind of manage their stress in different ways. And so I've kind of, talked with different individuals and kind of thought about, well, what are some of the things that you can do? Because when you're feeling like you don't have control, that creates more stress. So think about what is in your control. How can you manage your environment? What can you do about it? If you like to exercise, what about joining the live exercise sessions that you can find on YouTube or on the internet, something like that? Or catching up on a skill that you always wanted to do, learning a new language, whatever it is. There's a lot of resources out there too. And then also trying to do other things. I've seen a lot of people doing a lot of fixing up on their home, doing a lot of hands-on project, using your hands, doing those things also, help to relieve stress as well. So it's just trying to be a little bit creative in terms of how to manage our stress in this time.
Gotcha, thank you. Yeah, Dr. Engel, I actually wanted to reach out to you and ask you the same question with a slight twist to it, and that is, we've got Mother's Day coming up on this Sunday, and mothers who, in addition to playing many traditional roles, are now playing additional roles, including being one of the chief providers of education and homework management and meal preparation and so much more on their plates while they are still trying to do their other work that they've done, including out there working. And how do they juggle all of this now? Any tips for them? Because the stress level for them, as well as the fathers, has certainly increased dramatically.
Absolutely. I think I have some tips for moms, but I think they really apply to a lot of people. But if moms could remember this weekend that they need to make sure that they're taking care of themselves and other people are taking care of them as well. A lot of times women report to me that they feel like they spend their lives taking care of other people and ignoring their own needs. So self-care is a priority, making sure that they're getting enough sleep and they're working on their own nutrition, not just worrying about their children. And exercise, as we talked about, even something as simple as bathing daily, because people are staying home. Bathing daily can help people feel a little bit more clean in our, environment right now, where we're feeling especially, worried about germs. Staying connected with social support, even scheduling time for yourself. Schedule some time for yourself. If it's hard to do that because of sharing children, one of the best things to do is schedule some time for each partner. You have this day and I have that day. Have a day off. Limiting exposure to social media and other sources of stress could be a good one. And then just maybe going online and taking a relaxation class or learning a new skill like breathing, reaching out to a professional therapist or joining a support group. Those could all really help moms in general and this weekend hopefully too.
Thank you.
Well, and I think it's so important, I think, for us to remember as moms, well, and also as dads, but I think as we approach Mother's Day, as moms, it's the the saying, you've got to make sure that you put on your own oxygen mask first, right? It's like, we've got to make sure we're taking care of ourselves so we take care of our kids and our parents and all the other people, our husbands, our wives, all the other people that we care about so much. So kind of speaking of family, we have now been sheltering in place for almost 2 months, and we've got family units, large, small, sort of mixed families. We're spending a lot of time together under one roof. And that, as we all know, even in a perfect family, that can create a lot of stress and a lot of tension. So what are your top kind of pointers or your top suggestions for families who are starting to feel the stress of a little too much togetherness time?
Well, what I would say is I have about 5 different suggestions. One of them is learn how to self-soothe. Learn how to soothe yourself. So if for you, when you start getting stressed, you need to take a walk, know that. Have a list of things that help you to soothe yourself, but also work with your family. Actually sit down and make a list of the way you all soothe each other. You can actually notice the tensions are getting high and nicely suggest, how about we go take a walk, or how about, why don't you do that puzzle you were working on? That can really help. Setting up a family schedule for all 7 days of the week is a really good idea. Not a strict schedule that's really detailed, but one, in the mornings we do this, in the afternoons we do this, in the evenings we do this. Everyone knows kind of what to expect. That's where you can schedule some alone time. I really highly suggest everybody schedule some alone time or some downtime. Partners can take turns if they're taking care of young children as well. Trying to also if people would like to make a list of things that they really like, make them feel loved from other family members or people they're living with, and put that on the refrigerator. Each family member can look at the list each day and just pick one of the things off of someone else's list and try to do that for them. That kind of helps to make everyone feel a little bit more positive toward each other. And then the last thing I'll say is maybe try some I appreciate exercise, where maybe you sit down once a week and you have a family meeting, and each person maybe says a couple things that they appreciate about the other family members, to again pull the family together as a unit, and to remind each other to that they're grateful for each other. And even if there are some tensions that are high, that can actually help to really smooth some things out when you remember that your children actually think that you're okay and your teenagers don't hate you, and that kind of thing. Yeah.
I think it's important to be flexible during this time too. You have to kind of understand that, we can't expect things to be done as we normally would. So, a lot of children, they're doing online school, and the parents are kind of having to manage looking over their assignments and things like that. And, we have to be flexible in terms of that. And, we might have to change our expectations a little bit, and that's okay. As long as we're trying to do our best in terms of managing our stress, it's okay to just adjust to that.
So next question, we're talking a lot about how people can cope with the additional stress, but let's take it up a notch in the sense that individuals are reaching literally the breaking point. They are trying to stave off the loneliness and dealing with emotions and stress levels that they're just not prepared for. They need additional help. What are the next steps? And there's a point where what was outlined earlier, while it's incredibly helpful, may not be enough. So, Dr. Agar, starting with you, what would be perhaps the next steps for an individual to take?
Right, and it's important during this time to make sure that you reach out. Like we talked about before, you want to make sure that you are staying connected with others. However, a lot of people are depressed during this time. It's difficult to do that. And if they can reach out to professionals, to therapists, most of us are doing telehealth at this time, and so that it would be easier to connect in that way. You'll be able to speak with a professional and talk to someone and get the help that you need. And in a lot of ways, that this is a good time where we have a lot of resources in that, looking at those type of circumstances, because sometimes people can't get professional help because they lack transportation or scheduling issues. So in that way, telehealth is very flexible. There's many organizations and resources where you can find therapists, whether it's Psychology Today, the California Psychological Association, here in Orange County, the Orange County Psychological Association. You can find therapists, and you can reach out to them, whether it's via a telehealth platform such as this, or text. There's many ways to reach out for help, but it's very important to find that professional help.
And Dr. Engel, what would you add to that?
What I could add, one more thing. A lot of times people during this period are finding that if they talk with others going through the same experiences, it's been helping. So maybe finding a group of your friends who you can get some support from, like a support group, or joining a professional support group where you're you're finding maybe a women's support group for self-care, or we do one with the Orange County Psychological Association. It's a self-care check-in for psychologists, having other people who are in similar situations that you can talk to, and kind of they get it, they understand. That really goes a long way to staving off the feeling of loneliness, and also helping people to feel a little bit more connected and less sad and isolated and stressed.
Okay. Thank you. Back to you, Assemblywoman.
Well, we actually have a couple of questions that are coming in that are kind of around the same theme, related to the stress that people are experiencing because not just of the pandemic itself, but because of this increasingly kind of politicized, polarized view of the pandemic. So we have two questions that I want to read. So there's so much division and nastiness politically. What can we do? Arguing with friends continually, having to talk myself off a ledge. I'm handling the stay at home, but I find myself getting very angry at people who don't think the pandemic is real. That the numbers of dying don't matter all that much. I do meditation, I exercise. Any other ideas?
So I would suggest, sometimes we get inundated with information, and that causes increased anxiety at times. And we want to make sure that, during this time, we want to make sure we limit the information that we're getting, and we want to make sure that we're getting the information from credible sources, particularly as it relates to, let's say, COVID-19, getting information from the CDC. And so, because we could get information from all sorts of areas, and we get inundated and we're not sure, is this real? Is this blown out of proportion? And that causes greater anxiety. So we may have to limit the information that we get for a time being. And also to make sure that, like we talked earlier, connecting with other people, going to support groups. There are many support groups online as well. But being able to kind of manage your emotions as well. Already we're feeling a lot of stress, economic stress, financial stress, family stress. And this is kind of this divisiveness is adding to that as well. So if you've tried the different coping skills like meditation, exercising, and you say, you know what, I'm doing everything. How come I'm still feeling this way? Reach out to a professional as well, because sometimes we want to do everything we can, and we're going to do this and this and this, and sometimes we have to just stick to a routine, create a routine, so we don't feel like we are in chaos, and we do have some control over our lives.
Yeah, you mentioned that there are online support groups and online meditation resources. Is there any specific resource that you would recommend that we can point folks to who are watching at home?
I have some, Dr. Agar might as well. There's a company that I've been working with, they do a really great job of presenting free access, their webinars and actual classes and things. It's called accesselitenow.com. They have, okay. I did a meditation the other day. I woke up and went on there and I was like, oh, a free meditation. They do yoga classes, like core building class. They do cooking classes for nutrition. It's really a great wellness site. Also, I recommend to a lot of my clients apps on their phone, such as Balance or Headspace or Calm. There are many, many, many more as well, but having some of those resources, so that's helpful. And I also had one more comment about what we talked about earlier, normalizing, when people are getting upset because they're fighting with their friends or arguing about what's going on or starting to feel a little bit stressed out. Remembering that we're all going through something right now, and giving yourself a little bit of a break, because a lot of times when we're upset and we're feeling like, why are we fighting? We also start feeling like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I'm not acting like me either. So what's wrong? So remembering this is what everyone's experiencing can go a long way. And the other thing is, when you hear a friend or someone tell you something that's upsetting to them, like this is never going to end, or this is going to be bad, or whatever, a lot of times if you just listen to what they just said and tell them back what they just said, like, it sounds like you're really stressed, or it sounds like, you know, you don't think this is ever going to end. Sometimes that's a way to get around, kind of sidestep the argument, or and not take it personally. Really, they might be really just communicating to you how they feel, is what I'm trying to say. So,
yeah. Congressman, I would really love your perspective too on this point people are making, that kind of the polarized and divisive political climate is contributing to the stress people are already experiencing. How do you cope with that?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, because the last thing we need is the polarization during a pandemic. And we've gone from working so well collaboratively together, regardless of party affiliation, to address a pandemic. And somehow, the lines are now being defined as open everything up or shut everything down, when the reality all along has been to slow the spread of the disease, so that those that are most vulnerable have the time to have the appropriate protections, that we don't overwhelm our hospitals and frontline healthcare workers, and to allow new therapies to come forward to help those who do become infected and are at risk. And we've been doing a great job along those lines. And while I know it's incredibly difficult, I think people need to recognize that one extreme or the other is not going to solve the problem. And the best way to solve the problem and get the economy back to not just surviving and thriving is making sure that we work together in a pragmatic, rational way. And I think, I'm not sure which doctor said it earlier, but tuning out social media for a while could be really good for your mental health.
I could not agree more. I think that I want to be informed. I need to be informed to do this job. But if I read everything and go down every rabbit hole on Twitter or Facebook, I end up feeling both incredibly depressed and like totally out of control. So that is actually one thing that I have been doing, is consciously limiting my intake so that I don't let that happen. And I think the other thing I would say to people who are feeling angry when they see kind of, a view that is so counter to theirs being expressed, is it is my firm belief, kind of back to social media, that, the most active voices on social media, it's like the 10% on either extreme. And they may be the loudest voices, but they aren't the majority of voices. And I do think that, I think it's always important, but I think it's so important for us to remember that, particularly in this moment of crisis and this pandemic, that we have so much more in common than we do apart. And we're not going to get through this if we are divided. And I believe that is what most people want. And unfortunately, I think that there are some people who would seek to kind of exploit a crisis to drive people apart, which is devastating. But if that's causing you stress, I firmly believe, and I think that, the data proves it, that that's not where most people are. Most people want to move forward together. So getting back to another topic, again, related to my kids. So we talked a bit about moms, we talked about families. I am the mom of 2 boys. My boys are both in middle school. Right now, our children, at every age, they are going through something that's hard to fathom. If you're particularly if you're a small child, but kind of at every age, they are being bombarded with a really horrific reality. How do we talk to our kids about COVID-19? Young kids my age and our teenagers. How do we help them in this moment?
That's a really good question. Children really look to adults for guidance no matter how old they are. And if the parents seem overly worried or they're not sure how to manage the situation, the children are going to feel a little bit more anxious too. So remaining calm is important. And if it's true, also emphasizing that your family is safe and is fine right now. Also that our health officials are helping to keep people safe. Things like that can help children to feel a little bit more calm. Also making yourself available to the kids. Any age, children want to talk about how they're feeling when they're going through this kind of situation. So helping them understand what's going on, giving them age-appropriate factual information about the situation helps, helping them to kind of have a more healthy perspective maybe, and giving them lots of affection. Those are some really great ideas. We have, there are some resources, I believe, that are going out with the slides. There are a couple books on there that I recommend for younger children. The World Health Organization published one called My Hero Is You, and another one is Trinket and Sam. So those are good for talking to kids.
That's great. Dr. Agar, is there anything you would add?
You know, just to piggyback on what Dr. Engel said, you know, again, age-appropriate information, and just to give them the facts and just to be calm and just to really listen and just to be supportive. I think that could go a long way. You know, just making sure that they feel that they're being heard and that you are available to them. And I think that will calm their anxiety and their, you know, their fears about what's going on around them, because especially for little kids, it could be scary to see a lot of people in public wearing masks. I mean, this is, you know, it would look like if I was a child, I would be very scared. So just ensuring that, you know, they have that information, but telling them in an age appropriate way and just giving them the minimal facts that they need.
Dr. Engelden, I'll start with you on this next question, and I want to address in this time of higher stress those that are more at risk, and specifically talking about those that have had a history of depression or anxiety or have overcome substance abuse and the concerns of slipping back. Any advice for those individuals who, again, might have a higher propensity to respond to this stress in a negative way?
Absolutely. It's a great question. You know, I think everybody needs to remember again that this is normal right now to feel very upset and extra stressed out. Many people are reaching for previously used, maybe unhealthy coping mechanisms like, you know, drinking too much or eating too much. So first of all, give yourself a break. You don't have to be so hard on yourself if you make some kind of a mistake, but also be ready to reach out for some extra support, whether it's from a professional therapist or it's, you know, somebody in an AA group or a different kind of group. The most important thing, I think, is building a relapse prevention plan. And you can do that by yourself if you've had enough treatment. You should probably already have one, but it basically involves brainstorming clues that typically tell you that you're about to relapse. Like, for instance, you start getting cravings if you're a substance use, if you struggle with substance use or abuse, or for depression, you just start kind of noticing that you just don't take phone calls, and maybe you quit enjoying your hobbies, things like that. So when you have some clues, it alerts you that I need to do something now. And then the second part of this is having a list of some of the good coping skills and behaviors that you've used in the past that have really been helpful for you. So when you start noticing the clues are happening, you go to the list of the kind of solution, and you can go ahead and use those. And if you have this in place before you start to decline, that's actually even better, much better.
Great advice. Dr. Agar, could you add your thoughts as well?
Right. Again, just like what Dr. Engelden said, learning to understand and being very attuned to what's going on with yourself, and making sure that you catch where you are before it gets worse. So let's say, you know, if you're getting angry and then you start to see that you're like at a level 3, you want to make sure you catch that before you get to a 5, you know, and then making sure that you are kind of incorporating some of these skills so that you can kind of get back to a state where you feel a little bit calmer. But especially in this time, like Dr. Engelden said, you know, many people may resort to things that they used to do that really didn't work out for them, like, you know, resorting to substances and things like that. And we want to make sure that, you know, we are providing the help for those people. But again, reaching out for support during this time is very, very important.
And we have a quick follow-up on that topic. So are there any specific mental health apps that you would recommend for individuals who are struggling with depression or with substance abuse disorders?
I think Dr. Engel had mentioned some of them before, and I think that we have provided some links as well, and I think it might be at the end of this presentation. There's a lot of resources out there, and there are a lot of apps, and depending on what you're going through, there's a lot of meditation apps, there's a lot of apps that help ease your anxiety. One of those is called COVID Coach. There's a lot of different apps out there that will kind of help you manage your mood. Using a mood tracker is also very helpful because you want to make sure that you are kind of sticking to a routine. During this time, some people who are lucky enough to be working from home, they're working from home, but then they're not in their usual routine. They might be waking up later, they're not changing their clothes, but you want to make sure that you stick to a routine as much as possible where you're waking up at the same time every day. You're making sure that you're getting dressed, you're eating, and then you set boundaries, because if you don't, then you can kind of slowly get into this slump where you don't want to be, and then it's going to be very hard to kind of bounce back from that.
If I could just add real quickly, there's an app that I've used before called Mood Kit.
Okay.
Mood Kit. It actually has a really great way of doing what Dr. Agar said, tracking your mood, helping you to notice what you rate yourself on a scale from whatever 1 to 10, so that you're tracking whether you're getting more activated or less. It has a way of telling you, helping you to set some goals for taking care of yourself, and helps you to kind of rethink some of the maybe negative thoughts you're having in your head, things like that. It's a really powerful app. It's good for anxiety, depression, and a lot of other things.
That's great. Thank you. That's a terrific recommendation. Switching tacks slightly, we know that our seniors are particularly at risk from COVID-19 and are particularly vulnerable. Many of our seniors are very scared right now. How do we have productive conversations with the seniors in our lives about quarantining, about taking precautionary steps, and about navigating through this moment?
This is a tough one because there's personal choice or autonomy involved, and there's also family, support involved. I think families should maybe work together based on their own family culture, and talk and sit down and have a real serious, just a real good talk about how they're all feeling. A lot of the elder population I work with, they're split. Some of them are feeling like very scared and very worried, and then others are feeling just isolated and they wish they could get out there, but they're not as scared about, getting sick. So I think the family needs to talk, and if the elder in their family is choosing to do something that the family doesn't agree with, I don't think the family probably in most cases can tell the elder what to do sometimes, but they actually might be able to express how they feel. Their elder family member might not realize that there's stress involved here, with what's going on. So I don't know, Dr. Agar, do you have something to add to that?
Working with the elderly, sometimes, especially during this time, some might not be technologically savvy, and which could be problematic in a sense when we are trying to use these type of platforms to connect with one another. So it's really important, like you said, to utilize family members, or if you don't have family members, other individuals, neighbors, someone that you might be able to reach out to that could kind of help you kind of navigate those, like using technology in order to kind of reach out and connect with others as well.
And if I could add one more thing, I think that there's so much information floating around right now, and a lot of it's statistical, or it speaks to, in general, this is what the situation is. It is not specific to an individual. So one of the best sources of information might be the elder person's primary care physician. If that primary care physician is very worried because they have other risk factors aside from just purely being a certain age, that might be another piece of information that, they maybe feel a little better or a little worse. The family might feel better. We don't know, but it's truth. I think truth is always good with communication. So.
Right, absolutely. And we're in this moment, like you said, there are so many unknowns, and just that alone can be very overwhelming. So the more facts that we can have, whether it's about the situation or about our specific situation, the better it positions us to move through this.
So next question, we've seen in the news an uptick in racism and hate crimes against the AAPI community, Asian Americans being singled out by ignorant individuals who are creating angst for them, not just directly through these hate crimes, but also creating an environment for many of our fellow citizens and residents to feel at risk when they just go out and about. And so my question, I'll start with you, Dr. Agar, for those who actually witness these hate crimes or hate speech, whether they're reading it, seeing it, hearing it, what would you recommend for them who see somebody being abused, or for those who are personally feeling that personal abuse?
That's a great question. It depends on the situation. Obviously, you want to make sure that you are taking safety precautions, and trying to see what type of situation that you're in, and how much can you get involved. You want to make sure that, if you can document the event, make sure you do that. If you need to utilize that information later and report it to authorities, then that information is very important. If you are feeling stressed, if you are feeling stressed from either witnessing or being the victim of racism or discrimination, then definitely you want to make sure that you do reach out to professionals and or support groups as well, because this is a time when, already, we may be in this divisive kind of climate, and then this COVID-19 has maybe escalated that, particularly for the Asian community. One of the links that I have provided was with the Asian Neuropsychological Association. They have provided a page of different links there, where people can go to find different resources on managing their anxieties.
Thank you. Dr. Engel, would you like to jump in on that as well?
Thank you. Apparently I will. I think one of the Dr. Agar's comments were really pertinent. I think one of the things that we can also keep in mind are the way we act reflects, it models for other people. So if we can be continuing to learn about other people and learning about other traditions and other cultures, and if we can be having open conversations, if we're worried about something instead of relying on stereotypes, maybe let's just talk about we're all scared. How about we just admit that? We don't really need to worry about blaming so much as it's misplaced anyway. But that's one of the things we can do is just learn more about people, model good behavior, and then if you find that you come in contact with someone, a friend or anybody who's been a victim of some kind of a hate crime or some of these things that are going on, it's really great to just let them have a chance and tell them that you're there and that you don't think that was right, and maybe let them talk about it so they know that they have support openly from a lot of people.
Yeah, and I agree, and I hope that they can help encourage them to report any acts of violence against them, because it's important for law enforcement to understand when and where these hate crimes take place and hopefully have an appropriate response.
it's been a devastating part of the last several months, really and truly. And I think that somewhat back to the conversation we were having earlier, just about the political divisiveness that we're seeing right now. I think that sometimes people want to be able to scapegoat something, whether that's people that have different political views than you, or people that, you know, have different practices than you, or people that, you know, that aren't you. And the, I think, inconvenient reality of this is that the only enemy here is COVID-19. And it is formidable, but trying to blame other people isn't going to move any of us forward. So let me see. Okay, and somewhat related to that, but, you know, just broadly, what can we as a community do, whether that is, you know, in terms of supporting the AAPI community specifically, or even more broadly, what can we as a community do to build connectedness and support during this challenging time?
Well, one thing I can think of is we can all remember and remind each other that we're going through this together. There's no one on the planet who is not struggling with this right now, unless they don't know about it. So we're all in this together, and humans historically have been a group. You know, we're very gregarious. We live in groups, and we rely on altruism, which is taking care of other people and helping each other. So I think remembering that that's our mandate right now is to not be thinking only of yourself, but thinking of our neighbors and our friends, finding out what we can do. And also just continue to give yourself a break right now. You're stressed. Everyone is stressed. Everyone's not acting like themselves. They're feeling more stressed or irritable. I think that will help go a long way to helping everyone to, as a community, get along a little better and maybe not be so stressed out.
And I think that, you know, like piggybacking on what Dr. Engel then said, if we're doing something outside of ourselves, whether it's, you know, volunteering our time, doing something for someone else, just helping them out, or being there just to listen to them, that goes a long way. And that will also bring us together. But, you know, you might actually feel better, you know, just by doing something for others, and you're feeling that connection with other people. And this is a very important time to be doing that right now.
You know, one more thing, the United Way has a need for 211 operators. It's something you could do from home. A lot of my clients have asked, how can I help? I want to help, but you can't go anywhere to help. So this is one example of a way you could help, getting involved with some organizations that do a lot of phone business, like 211 operators. So anyway, you can consider looking for those kinds of opportunities in the community as well.
I think that is such a great idea. And I think that while we've talked a little bit about some of the divisiveness and some of the stress, I think we've also seen the way in which this has brought out the absolute best in so many people. I mean, we have had over 100,000 people volunteer to join California's Health Corps to say, I want to be part of the front line in this fight. We have our healthcare workers and our first responders who are on the front line each and every day to keep our community safe. And here in our community, we have people, like you said, we get calls, and I know the congressman does too, every single day from people going, what can I do? How can I help? And those are the conversations that give me so much faith and so much inspiration and so much belief that we will get through this. And so in addition to the 211 opportunity that you mentioned, our local Meals on Wheels programs, they do need drivers, and that is a profound service to the community. And I've got some close friends who are doing that. And like you said, it doesn't just bring joy and bring light to the community, it lifts them up each and every time that they do it. So that's an opportunity. And then we're also reaching out through my office to seniors to check in on the seniors in our community, just to see, are you okay? Are there issues? Is there anything we can help with? And again, people are so grateful, and the people that are doing that, the people that are volunteering their time, feel incredibly gratified. So Congressman Ruda, this first question for you. So, tips in terms of how we can participate in the community.
Great question. And we are all cooped up. We're anxious to get out and about while still being under stay-at-home orders. But there are exceptions to that to do volunteer work. And for Kadi, for you and I, we're in a business of service, and we work with our constituents. We meet with our constituents. We try to pass legislation on their behalf. But a lot of that work also includes being with them. And it's difficult during these times for us not to be able to be with the ones that we want to serve. And so for me, the opportunities have been assembling PPE, personal protection equipment that we were able to pull together over 30,000 pieces and deliver it to local hospitals and see the frontline healthcare workers receive that. Had the chance earlier this week to deliver meals directly to Laguna Beach's firefighters who are on the front lines every day. And most weekends, I try to get out, usually with some family members, to local food bank drives where we pass out food to those who need it. And unfortunately, it's about 6,000 to 8,000 cars that pass through where I was, and there's other lines in other places that are doing similar work. But it feels good to get out and help folks in this time of need. And for many, and you hit a really good point, Kadi, and we talked about this a little bit, if you're feeling down, one of the best ways to feel better is to help others. And we've had a lot of our volunteers who can't be knocking on doors and canvassing right now, just calling senior citizens and saying, hey, are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need groceries? Do you need errands? Do you need prescriptions filled? You just need someone to talk to. And that's what's amazing right now with this pandemic, is that this is an opportunity for all of us to serve, all of us to give back. And I would suggest for everyone that is looking for ways to be re-engaged, that's a great way to do it. Thanks, Kadi, for putting this together. And doctors, thanks for being on. It's a pleasure hearing so much of your information, and I'll turn it back over to the next person.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Congressman Ruda. And before we wrap up, there is one question that we've gotten a lot, which is just, we've talked kind of big picture. We've provided some great resources, but I'd love to hear from the three of you, and then I'll share as well. Kind of what are your kind of the top things that you do to ensure that you're managing stress and managing anxiety? I will start with, let me start, Dr. Agar, let me start with you.
Well, it's something that I talked about earlier. I want to make sure that I am waking up at a certain time and I start my day in a positive mood and with positive thoughts. That this is going to be a great day. And I have a gratitude journal, and I write down what I'm grateful for. And then I go about my day, and because we can't go to the gym anymore, I try to, watch something on the internet where I'm, doing Zumba or something where, I'm kind of exercising and getting going. So, I'm getting the endorphins and making sure that, I'm in a positive mood, and I'm going through my day with that positive mindset. And then I just want to focus on what can I do? How can I manage my own stress? And then how can I also help others manage their stress as well?
Thank you. Dr. Ingleton.
Thank you for asking. I think part of what I'm doing, I love my job. And so the more people I can help, I feel so much better. I feel a little helpless during this situation because so many people need help and I can't reach them all. But I also at home, I practice mindfulness regularly. And also my family's kind of funny. We're all doing shoulder massages. We're just, sharing. Okay. It's kind of a fun giggly time where, you've got my daughter's grown up, but we have a fun time just cuddling on the couch and just doing shoulder massages and watching a movie. Or I'm also actively involved in several nice professional organizations. So I'm continuing to build new relationships with people, even if it's just meeting over a Zoom meeting or in a big group on Zoom. And the last thing is just spending time doing silly things like doing a puzzle or playing with, paints and things like that. I think that's just kind of fun.
Well, thank you. And Congressman Ruda, what are your top tips?
Well, my wife and I were empty nesters. We have 4 kids in their 20s who have all moved back into our Fort Ruda quarantine quarters. And interesting, it's actually reduced the stress. I think all of us being together, not on vacation, but here in a common cause to help flatten the curve. We've started a victory garden. We have dinner together every night, and the dinners, interestingly, tend to run, an hour or 2 hours because we're just sitting around talking and laughing and having fun together. And these are moments that, candidly, I don't think we would be having right now at this point in our life, but for the pandemic. So we're trying to see the blessings that are coming out of the situation and embrace those best we can and work together as we get through it. I think my wife and I are going to be sad when the kids venture out and go back to the new normal.
Well, I think for me, so many of you talked about just being grateful for all of the blessings that we have. And for me, that is my number one. And I think that this has made me very grateful for the little things, whether that's hugging my kids or being able to take my dog for a walk on the beach or just being outside and, feeling the wind in my hair, right? And I think it's always important to be really intentional about gratitude and not take things for granted. And I think that this moment has really just reinforced that for me. The second thing, and I already talked about that, is I just really limit my information flow on social media. And my third is, I guess, kind of a riff on the serenity prayer in terms of like controlling what I can control and doing everything that I can do to flatten this curve, to stay at home, to stay safe, and also to help my community in this moment of crisis. And to also recognize that I cannot control everything and to still be able to sleep well at night knowing that. And then I think from a broader public policy perspective, I am part of the legislature's mental health caucus. So this has been a priority and an area of focus for me for some time. And I think that as we move through this COVID response and into recovery, so many of our priorities are going to be even more important. We need to dramatically improve California's system for mental health care. We need to treat mental health with the same degree of seriousness that we treat physical health. And we need to really internalize the lesson that early intervention and prevention is so much better than waiting for a moment of crisis. So that, from a policy perspective, will continue to be an area of focus. The legislature just actually returned to session this week. So I was in Sacramento this week, and we will be continuing to focus on COVID response and recovery as we navigate this crisis. So thank you to all of you for joining me tonight. Thank you for all that you do for our community, and thank you for your partnership in this. Everyone at home, stay safe, and stay strong.